Hello class. Over the last few weeks, we have been working on finding and cutting your dramatic interpretation monologues. For the purpose of this video, I hope to help you take the next step in your monologue building. That step includes analyzing, blocking, and transitioning through your scenes. This video will hopefully explain what some of these terms are and how that they can be incorporated into your acting and creation of each scene. I hope that it is very helpful, and I hope that you come to class on Friday prepared to block out your own scenes. I would ask that you take notes during this video of all of the important terms and keep those notes to be turned in on Friday once we get this started. Hello class. Today we are going to be learning about how to block, analyze, and transition through a dramatic interpretation monologue. Now, what a dramatic interpretation monologue is it's an event in speech and debate in which you take a 10-minute monologue of one character and you perform as that character with the use of no props, no costumes. Essentially, you have to make everything up in the space. And you get about this much space to perform in as well. So it's pretty limited. One of the interesting things about it that you're going to learn about today and how to do is called pantomiming. And what that means is it's taking objects and things in the space, acting like they're there even though they're not. So you have to be very spatially aware of the size of things and of the actual amount of space you have. At the same time as just like acting as if you're holding objects, so say I'm holding a cup or a coffee mug, right, or I have a backpack on, even though I don't actually have it on, you have to think about actual legitimate objects that are in a space. So, and the way that you're going to determine where those things are will be based on the monologue that you're doing. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to analyze your monologue. There are a couple things that you want to analyze it for. Number one, you're going to want to analyze it for the character that you're playing and the type of person that they are. So if we take, for example, a 20-year-old college student, okay?
And they live in a small, tiny little apartment, right? And then we
take a look at the beginning of the monologue, and this is where our second step of analyzation is we need to analyze where they are at every point in the monologue. So if at the beginning of the monologue they start in their little workroom, right? Then we have to start thinking of number one, things that a college student would be doing, and number two, things that would be in a workroom. And then you should also consider what kind of work they do at this point. So let's say that this college student writes music. Cool? So those are three things to help us determine what might be in this space that we're going, this made up space that we're going to work in. So let's take the workspace idea, for instance. If this is my space and I need to determine what I can use, what a workspace should have, let's say a table. A table is number one, right? Every workspace probably has a table that you have stuff on. So we're going to place that here. It's invisible, it doesn't exist, but if you think about it, as you're acting as this character, you can't just walk through this table. And that's something that's very important about dramatic interpretation, is realizing how big something is and where it is in the space so that you don't just walk through it. So there's number one. We have a table. The table has a bunch of papers on it. That's all that we have. So we can pick up those papers, we can use those papers if we want to. Number two, he's a college student. What's a normal thing for a college student to have in their little dingy apartment? Is a mini fridge. Cool? So we're going to pretend that there's a mini fridge over here. And in that mini fridge is some soda because he likes to drink soda. Okay? This is all stuff that you make up based on the character that you're playing. Cool? So at many points this guy could come over here, he can open up the mini fridge, and he could drink a soda if he wants to. Now, the third thing, we said he's a music student, right? So we're going to pretend then, if the mini fridge is in this corner, that there's a piano right next to that mini fridge. And every piano, of course, there's not many pianos out there that don't have a chair with it. So we also have to imagine that there's a chair here. So every time we come over to this piano, we sit down in the chair, and I play the piano. Of course, it's all made up. It's kind of hard to do and to imagine at first, but this is just a normal way to block out the space that you're in. The last thing that you want to do when blocking out every single scene is to consider where a door would be, or an exit space. That's also a space for your character to look in places of actual drama, because it's a way for them to get out of this scene. And so if we just say, so we need to find a door, we could either place it in front of us, which means that we would go this way if we wanted to leave the scene, or we could place it behind us. We're going to say behind us. Okay, so we blocked out one scene. Now we look through the rest of the monologue and we realize that, oh, this character probably needs to do more stuff than just mess with his table and play on his piano this entire time and drink soda. We say that in the next part of the monologue, the character needs to go and have a conversation with his dad, but we haven't placed a phone in this room and we don't want too much to be in one room. That's a situation in which we need to use what is called a transition. Now, a transition is a situation in which either time or place of your character changes. For this type of transition, where the character needs something that might be in another room of this house, that would be a situation in which you may just want to have the character walk outside of the door. Of course, again, it's just pretend. And you walk into a different room. At that point, you would need to create a completely different space. So in this different room, let's say, now there's a chair in the center of the room. So everything is centered on him sitting in the chair. Next to the chair, there's a table with a lamp on it and a phone. And then he goes and he sits down and he talks on the phone. Cool? You want to plan that out for your entire space. Now there are other types of transitions. Like we talked about, that's one where the transition would probably be in the same room. But the second type of transition is where the character actually needs to go somewhere else, or there's a change in time. And in that sort of transition, you would do what is called morphing. And morphing is when you change your body position slowly from one place to the next to signify the character going through a change in time. And that change in time also changes the space. So if we say he's in his living room and he has a soda, right, and he needs to get to an interview, and the character's talking about the interview, and then he gets to his last line, you would morph slowly into, say, a chair. And now you're in a completely different scene that's completely blocked out. So, for your entire piece, you should go through, consider the character, consider the situations they're in, and consider the space that they're working in. That way you know at all times where they are. And that is how you block a scene and a monologue in dramatic interpretation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you gained some insight into how to analyze, block, and transition through a dramatic interpretation monologue. Please feel free to come to class on Friday with questions and concerns as to anything that was unclear in the video. I hope to see you all there, and I hope that you come with some ideas prepared as to how you may want to start blocking out your own scenes. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on Friday.